It is 27 degrees here in Abuja. Goodness me, you would have thought. But Hamilton is already here. A little dusty, dry, mixed feelings, but I can't complain. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise. It is this morning. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, they say by the seasons you shall know them. Somebody was very excited this morning about the weather and what it eventually means for this time of the year. Good morning and welcome. Yes, we are in that time of the year on this program. I'm Maupe Oguyusu.
Don't blame that person. Rejoice whenever you can, if you can. But let's go ahead and take a look at this scenery here in the capital city. And so, there you go. I know. Of the back of what now? But whichever way, it's still lush green, but now you have to put a little more effort. You have to be deliberate if you want to see that lushness maintained wherever you are in any part of the city, the capital city, that is, because it's dry, it's getting drier, you know, that season. But all the same, hey, I wonder how it isn't just by now. I intend to go there soon. Oh, National Stadium. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Memories now.
A lot of people do not want to talk about stadium this morning, especially when you consider what happened to the Super Eagles last night. But
dear.
Hey, it is what it is. We've been told there are no minions in football. And you have to play with your opponent with every ounce of respect. So if you're not playing with respect, the chances that you'll be trounced, never mind that you've qualified, are very high. So that, I guess that's what Rwanda was trying to tell us yesterday. But hey, the game wasn't played here. It was played in Uyo. This is the National Stadium here in Abuja. The MKO Abiola, beg your pardon, Abiola, yeah, beg your pardon, I'm trying to remember his name now. Moshood Abiola Stadium, because there's an MKO Stadium in Ogun State. That one is actually called the MKO Stadium. This is called the Moshood Abiola Stadium here in Abuja. It was renamed during the tenure of President Buhari, who eventually changed the name of the National Stadium and renamed it in honor of the pro-democracy icon, Moshood Kashimawo Abiola, and also changed Democracy Day from May 29 to June 12. So quite a significant day it was when the stadium was renamed. But what you're seeing, the velodrome, where not only sporting events happen, political events happen there. I have witnessed at least a convention of a political party happening, and also the National Stadium, where not only sporting activities take place, but also a lot of religious events. Just in case you're wondering, right now, the military is currently hosting a game, hosting, I think, a number of countries at an international competition at the MKO, that's beg your pardon, the Moshood Abiola. I have to learn how to say that, the Moshood Abiola Stadium, because when you say the MKO Stadium, you're actually talking about another stadium in Ogun State. It's in Abeokuta, Ogun State. But this is what we have this morning, the lush green, already fading away gradually. As Chamberlain said, if you want to keep seeing it, then you have to wet it. But you know, there's no wetting as intentional and as original as that done by the Almighty himself.
Yeah, and you know, speaking about politics and democracy, former President Obasanjo has had a lot to say on that matter. And of course, you know, you expect a lot of reactions. So all of that are playing out, and we will attempt it to get a little background on some of those things. But on the same, it's time for us to take you through some of the papers this morning, and so here they are. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the papers we've got for you this morning. Nigerian Tribune is about politics today. Adeleke, Oyo PDP knock Ganduje over APC's plot to take over Oyo, Osun. Ganduje suffering from verbal diarrhea, Osun government. Nobody prays for APC's pain beyond 2027, Oyo PDP. So this is coming off the back of the statement he made after the just concluded Ondo governorship election. So that may continue for a while, and who knows for how long. But take a look at Vanguard newspaper next. LCCI, ASBON, analysts, others, big holes in 2025 budget. And then you can see the right here, it will take magic wand to succeed, ascribed to Asbon. Funding will be a challenge. That's for financial experts right there, speaking up on that particular matter. Leadership newspaper here this morning is about the tax bills. Lawmakers there, governors queue behind Tinubu. And some of their riders on the front pages here. Reform will diversify revenue base, ensure equity, ascribed to Speaker. Some governors threatening us with 2027 tickets. Agbese. Northern lawmakers will be guided by national interest, ascribed to Dogowa. So it will be a battle awaits in the National Assembly, and who knows how that will eventually play out. And then Daily Trust also focuses on that. It says Northern reps raise fresh concerns over tax reform bills. Say region plagued by insecurity, low productivity. Have a look at this one. It's unfair for Lagos, Rivers, FCT to have 70% VAT proceeds, ascribed to FIRS boss, who would have thought, will be guided by national interest, ascribed to Dogowa. So have a read on this, take a look at it and see, put it in context, as we always say. The Guardian newspaper, 18 million out of school children, 34 states ditch UBE grants as unused funds surpass 135 billion naira, the paper reports here today. Then on the front page as well, FIRS boss makes case for tax bills as FG calms governors on reforms. So reconcile that probably with the previous paper, the comment ascribed to him early on. Okay, so we've got a slew of papers focusing on this back and forth between the presidency and the former president. And so here we go. So Daily Independent, presidency replies Obasanjo says he lacks leadership qualities. Presided over Nigeria's most fraudulent election. Nigerian News directs. Look at the theme, Baba go slow. You spent $16 billion generating megawatts of darkness. Presidency hits back at Obasanjo. Says Obasanjo's legacy of corruption, mismanagement, stifled Nigeria's growth. Former President Obasanjo's leadership failed to fix deplorable federal roads, ascribed to Onanuga. And then blueprints, presidency to Obasanjo. You ran Nigeria with impunity, not ideal leader to emulate. And then you also see the right here, Ohaneze, Arewa Group, others tackle ex-president. This Nigeria, you left Nigeria worse off in terms of corruption, economic woes, others. Tinubu fires back at Obasanjo over comments that his administration is rudderless. Says ex-president reeks of profound hypocrisy, presided over electoral heist, the paper reports here today. And then Business Day, Nigeria's oil outputs underwhelms ambitious 2025 budget. So there are some of the front pages this morning.
Well, a lot really stand out on the front pages of the papers this morning. You certainly cannot miss that back and forth between the presidency and former President Olusegun Obasanjo. You know,
that's right.
He spares no punches. Anytime he wants to go for the kill, he takes no prisoners. That's basically what the former president does. But certainly, the handlers of the president are not taking it lying low. They have been responding, and you can see that the papers wash with that. I guess we'll be asking our guest much later what he makes of that back and forth. There's almost no president whom the former president hasn't spoken to, either by way of speaking or by way of his famous letters. So who knows? Will we see one of those before this administration is over? We never can tell, but we certainly have begun to hear his words. And I think it's Emerald has spoken in Faraway America. But that's not what I want to highlight. What I want to highlight is the fact that, to be honest, I actually have two stories I want to highlight. I don't know if Chimling is going to be highlighting. Is that the one you're going to be highlighting?
The out-of-school children?
Yep.
Oh, that's serious. 18 million of them?
It is very serious.
That's more than some countries.
It is very serious. And I'm wondering who is taking note. And when you take a look at the front page of The Guardian and you see that 34 states are ditching universal basic education funds. The grants. They're basically all theirs to get as long as they're able to match with counterpart funding. Before now, we know that states used to play smart about this. You know, a number of them will get loans from the banks as their counterpart funding and, you know, show UBEC authorities that they actually do have this funds, and then UBEC will give them the grants after a long process. And as soon as UBEC gives them the grants, they promptly return the money of the banks to them.
And pocket the grant?
No, and then they use the grant for whatever it was that they wanted to. But the idea is to actually encourage states, you know, to say, look, federal government is willing to match you, whatever it is that you want to give to education, particularly universal basic education, primary education, what is the right of every single Nigerian. You know, there are federal funds willing to meet you halfway. So far, so good. What we're reading, if we're to go with the headlines, and I really don't want to run away with it, we're understanding that 34 states haven't, you know, made an attempt to access these grants. There are big questions as to why. Is it that the states feel that they don't need it? Is it that they're not aware the funds are there? Or is it that they're self-sufficient? Because here we are trying to give local government autonomy. And part of the reason why a lot of states have been claiming that they have been, this joint account was absolutely necessary was because they were paying teacher salaries and local governments cannot cope. Now, if there are funds to help match that and to help ease the burden, why aren't the states, you know, getting access or making attempts to get access to this funds? This is a very important story.
There's a bit of breakdown.
The Guardian newspapers.
Let's just add this to it
on the front page.
It went on to say 7 northern states failed to access 9.65 billion, Southwest 9.4 billion, Southeast 12.9 billion. Only Katsina, Kaduna accessed Q1, Q2 2024 matching grants. And then it says those yet to retrieve from 2021, 22, 23 grants are Abia, that's 4.28 billion, Imo, 3.54 billion, Ogun, 4.26 billion. And you would have thought maybe all of them have challenges, there must be something fundamentally wrong. But how is it that Katsina and Kaduna accessed the Q1, Q2 2024 matching grant? What's going on?
Big questions to ask of the states, and it's a good thing that the Guardian has, you know, dedicated resources, because when you see this sort of story, they don't come cheap. It means that they have dedicated resources to be able to do the breakdown and hold the feet of leaders to account. I think that the governors of the states, these 34 states which have not yet accessed the grant, really need to be speaking up. Is it that you have enough? Is it that you don't need UBEC funds? Or what exactly is it? What exactly has, you know, made you, you know, unable or discouraged, or, you know, just left the funds lying there? Because this is actually meant for Nigerian children. We have the highest number of out-of-school children on the continent of Africa. We're competing with another part of the world where there are wars happening, and that certainly is not good. I remember it was President Obasanjo, I remember, who in his contribution to a particular conversation we're having some time ago, you know, was saying that when you deprive children of an education, you deprive them of the ability to be able to contribute meaningfully as citizens of Nigeria, as citizens of a country. And that has really stuck with me. The only reason why we're able to be here having this conversation is because we have an education. And the reason why a number of people are able to write and communicate to us or communicate with us is because they also have an education. How many more people have we excluded because of how in shambles our education system is? It is really a shame. Reported what has been reported on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. I'm hoping that somebody takes note and sees how they can remove their state from among the 34 that we're currently witnessing on the front page.
Well, yes, indeed, well said. And some controversy going on about this tax bill. Lawmakers are saying, look, we're going to stick with the president and go on with it. And he said, look, if you've got any misgivings, concerns whatsoever, go to the floor of the House. I'm not asked that it be withdrawn wholly or holistically. So quite interesting, some politics there, because look at it, some of those states or lawmakers who say we're going to stick with him, it turns out that they have challenges with their governors.
Oh.
They seem to have fallen out with some of them. So, but I don't know the percentage, if that's going to be sufficient to pull through at the end of the day, if the president will get what he wants, or will the governors get it this time. And so whichever way the pendulum swings, I tell you, it will be some precedent. So if you get to the NAS, who holds sway there? I guess we will see.
Big question. Was yesterday the tax reform public hearing commenced, and the speaker, no less than the speaker, was there to, the deputy speaker and deputy speaker were both there, but the speaker actually had to say that, you know, the House of Reps hasn't taken side on this. We saw how all of the opening speeches were nice and warm. People, of course, had their... It's going to be a very interesting conversation, Chairman, that I can assure you, because at some point during the conversation, I don't know what was asked, but I suddenly saw almost all the members on the floor in that public hearing room having their hands up. I imagine there are questions that they had to ask of the tax committee, because they had a presentation there at that public hearing. I guess it's something that we certainly will have to keep tabs on, because you also see on the front page here, Northern Reps raise fresh concerns over tax reform bill. So we'll see how that eventually pans out, whether this is able to sail through on the floor of the National
Let
Assembly.
ideas contend.
Indeed.
And this time, I hope they will read the bill.
Yes, idea is not sentiment.
All right, we're back in a moment. Stay on with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, we're joined by Prince Adewole Adebayo. He was the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party in the last presidential election. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Good to see you both.
Yes, good to see you too. Quite a lot going on in the country. And one wonders, I mean, you wanted to at least steer the ship of state at the time. So from your perspective, considering what you're seeing today and how things are going on, what do you think?
Unfortunately, I think they are predictably bad. They are where we said they will be. Luckily, they're not as bad as one had feared, given the policy options that people adopted and the mentality and attitude to governance that was adopted by many of the political parties and the contestants, and one of whom now is our commander-in-chief. So that cavalier attitude, where they will not discuss policies, they will just assert their entitlement to come there because they've been in politics for a long time, and there are friends everywhere who believe that if they come in, they will have access to patronage and power. And the artificial fight over who has the dominance of Nigerian political space. Is it my religion or your religion? Is it my zone or your zone? So those things that don't impact on the lives of the people and don't power the ship of state. Those were the issues that were dominant. And even now, to get policy-rich issues into the mainstream, you get comments by some former Ds, another comment by some, even where they don't have policy disagreements, they have what Fela Adebayo Kuti used to call yabis. You know, for those who did not used to go to the shrine in those days, they used to have a night called Yabis Night. So what Nigerian political class have turned the entire 4 years to is Yabis years. They just come, you say what you like, whether you disagree or not, whether it's consistent with what you've done all your life, just say whatever comes, whatever cheap shot you can control. And at the end of the day, policy is not being done. Remember, there are 4 pillars of governance that you can use to know. First, you will see that if the military and security agencies are effective and life and property are safe, governance is taking place, even if the president doesn't talk. If the civil services are delivering on services and they are meeting their target and people have better electricity, better healthcare and all of that, you will see. If the rule of law is working through the judiciary, lawyers and the police, and people have a feeling that they can enjoy the rule of law, and if industries work, industry in 2 branches, professionals like lawyers, nurses and all of that, and productive industry, like manufacturing, agriculture, extractive industry, if those ones are working, whether someone likes your face or not, evidence will be clear.
A number of things, you've said that. But, you know, they've also tried to put in place a number of policies. From that perspective, they want things to work. But we've seen some of those economic policies, that's manufacturers, they've consistently kicked against and say, look, this is not working for us. And then you come to the electricity sector. The tariffs there, consumers are really hemorrhaging. They're saying, look, this is tough. Businesses themselves too. And so that's why some people think or say they strongly believe that, look, the policies of this government, even IMF themselves, who people are accusing of imposing their decisions on us, are saying, look, some of these policies are not working. And then you ask yourself, when politicians contest and say they want to run or lead the country, and then they get in there, you wonder, do they really mean this thing? To what extent do they have the interest of the country at heart? Or is it they get there, it's all about politics?
I don't know their hearts. I believe some of them have hearts. But I see what they are doing. Their acts is what I'm looking at. So, for example, the policies that all of them are quarreling over are their own policies. They have the same common policies. And these policies don't work. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is almost like an industrial historic society, like Manufacturer Museum Association of Nigeria, because there are no industries anymore. If you look at the critical sectors of the economy, no industry, and if no manufacturing. And China's TV is a business. You consume energy, you pay wages, you have your own costs. You could see that it's reflecting. And we are spending the same currency. So I don't want us to get issues confused. IMF is not saying what we are saying. And I've seen in the media, it looks like people are a bit confused about what the IMF say. IMF, we are saying that the policies of the government don't fit into our socio-economic situation, and they don't address our needs. That's the complaint from manufacturers, from other people, from labor, from Nigerians. IMF is saying that the government is not punishing you enough, that they haven't been able to get enough consensus for deeper reforms. That's what the IMF is saying. IMF is calling you a resource-intense society, country. That they change their language every time. They hire new consultants who bring new words for them. But what they are saying is that we are oil export dependent. And as a result of that, we are not able to do the kind of reforms they want. They also say that because we fall into the bracket of those who are using about 15 to 20% of their revenue to pay interest on loans. Yeah. So they see that they are stressed. But none of those indices deal with the actual problem we have in the country. So if you want to oppose the government and you don't have your own words, you can borrow words from the IMF. But if you keep amplifying what the IMF is saying and you put pressure on the government to react, to try to meet the IMF standard, things will be worse. Because the errors that they are committing now, they will even commit the errors more.
So what would you have done?
What I would have done is basically first form a government, which they haven't done to today.
They haven't formed the government?
No. For example, naming 3 spokespersons to speak for one man shows to you that they're just announcing names. You have to gather all the talents in the country. That's the first duty you have, because we have a problem with our constitution that says that only one man is the government. Because Section 5 of the Constitution says all executive powers are vested in the government. So if you want to talk about the government today, you can only talk about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the only one lawfully in government.
No, what about state governors?
No, state government, I'm talking about the federal level.
Oh, okay.
Because the states don't run macroeconomics. What they do is they run their own state. They are just like collect money and spend. But at the national level, because of the broad issues we are talking about, the president is the only executive. Now, he has to now bring talents from all over the country to form a cabinet. And he hasn't done so. He's named some ministers. Many of them, the only thing they know, and I'm serious about this, is they know the road to their office. Now, okay, my ministry is here, I go there. But to engage issues, to have clear mandates, they don't see themselves often, I'm sure, apart from going to listen to them when they do Federal Executive Council meeting and somebody is asked to address the media, go and track decisions that they make in the Federal Executive Council. There are no policy ones. Most of them are just approval. They are like tenders board now. They've turned themselves to a tenders board where you take a contract to them. If it's above ministerial level, you take it to the council, they approve that. If you look at the budget they are working on now, they've reached 45 trillion, which means that, technically speaking, their year 2 budget is worse than a leaner and worse than their year 1 budget. Because the 45 trillion, if you put it in real terms, in terms of the inflation, in terms of the debasement of the currency, they are not able to. And remember that they have been talking about the fact that they gain more revenue. So these are the problems. The president has to form the government. Secondly, they need to take control of the security of the country. And some of this,
in terms of economic policies, yes, you haven't said which one would you have adopted?
No, basically, I have said it over and over again. You form a government, the policies you adopt, one is the policy that has to do with, you have to secure the country, because there's a linkage between security and economics. Why? Because you want to deal with inflation. To deal with that, you have to get food for people. To get food for people, you need to do some agriculture, because even if you want to do importation, even if you have the money, there are risks dealing with importation of food for your people. So, do agriculture. To do that, you need to be in charge of the land. You need to govern the country. Second, you need to start to find a way to employ people. And there are 3 ways you can employ people. One, you have to spend the money you have, which they have some money, on social investment. For example, you just read in your news that they will not even they have not been able to get the states to take 125 billion, which is minuscule amount, UBEC.
Yeah, UBEC fund.
Now, if you have UBEC, what does that tell you? It tells you that if you get more children into school, you hire more teachers and social workers. And if you hire those teachers will have to pay for food, accommodation, you grow the economy from there.
That's why the states play a huge role.
Yes, because it is you are in charge of the macroeconomic policy. The government does 3 things. When you are in charge of the economy, you control government spending at federal level, you control subsidiary spending at state and local government level, you control private sector spending, because people will align their own investment to what the government policies
How
are.
would you get revenue? Because this government says that what they meant was really bad, and that the crude, we already had a lot of crude oil sales that had already been, done with ahead of time, and so it was going to be difficult for them to raise additional money other than what they say they're trying to do now, which NNPC announced increase to 1.8 million barrels per day. They're targeting 2 million before December. So the government says, look, that is the one way which we want to raise revenue, because at the end of the day, you need revenue to do some of these things you're talking about.
Revenue is a byproduct of governance. If you govern any space, revenue will come out of that governance. The government is not essentially just in a revenue. Government is not a revenue agency. Government is a service provision agency, a series of agencies, one of which collect taxes. When you have ungoverned spaces, for example, when you have vast roads, if you travel, as I believe you do travel, across the country, we have trailers broken down all over the place. That is an opportunity for you to make money, because if you build roadways and you toll those roadways, money will come. If you see this vast arable land, which you are giving to Lakurawa and all these other new agencies, you are creating the forest by the name of bandits. If you take control of these spaces and you put agricultural concerns there, produce will come and you will generate revenue from that. If you employ people and do social works and all of that, you employ people, then you would end up getting payee taxes from there. If you get industries to work with better interest rates and incentive for industries, the industries will pay VAT, they'll pay workers' salary, workers will pay taxes. There's no magic to governance than that. You cannot be shy to govern and be crying revenue. Revenue is not going to fall from the skies. Already, they are squeezing the most out of the people. Right now, there's poverty tax in every sector. So what they need to do is that the more you expand the scope of government, the more efficient you are in governance, the better use of the government revenue that you have. If there used to be in those days, I was much younger, efficiency index. People in government have what we call co-efficiencies they work with. So you will see the allocative efficiency analysis being done by Ministry of Planning. The money we spent in education, what is the outcome? How many students did we produce? The money we put in the hospitals, how many deliveries did we do in maternity hall and all of those places? Then you keep measuring. That's what they are saying. They're not government. If you look at it, don't go with your camera, just walk into the civil services. The civil servants that have nothing to do. Except if the minister is coming in the corridor and they all run and collide with each other and say, the minister is coming.
You plan to what? Restructure? Sack them? Or what?
No. You need to use them. They just know I'm a civil servant and I'm deployed to Ministry X, but there are no mandates. Even from commissioner level in some states.
I'm surprised you say this, because I wonder if you say this out of experience or you say this based on assumption.
I interact with government agencies all the time, and if you have family members who are in government, ask them, if you are an assistant director, what project are you supervising? They have nothing. They cannot be in meeting with the ministers.
Some of them?
Most of them. And that's a lot if you say most. Go on. There are people who are still alive who will tell you what the civil services used to be like. You go to them, Philip Asiodu and so many other people that I can mention, go and talk to them, they will tell you, go and talk to Falai and Co. When they were 27 years or 28 years old, assistant director, they had projects they're managing. So you just in the public service, that shows, I'm trying to give you indices of where there's no governance. If you see the president and the number of cars following the siren and they are all walking up and down, it gives you an impression that there's governance going on. But who to govern, they need to use public servants to govern. And you will now know how busy those public servants are, will tell you whether government is busy. When you say you are a federal controller of road in Benue, what do you do most of the time? There's no road being built, no road being maintained. If you go to Pharma, Federal Road Maintenance Agency, what are they doing? Go to NANSRA, go to DFRI, go to the Directorate of Employment. They are not giving them new mandates. That's why they keep creating ministries here and there that just share money. Recently, they said 25 million Nigerians got some amount of money. You haven't seen any of them. You haven't seen any of them. Neither have I. So, and they can't give you the metrics. So, long and short of it.
Yeah, but we know 25 million is a drop in the ocean compared with 250 million.
If you have 10%, because it's not everybody who needs the money. So, let's say you have a poverty rate of about 70%. So, if you have 25 million, that will come to at least about maybe 15, 20% of them. They should be feasible. You should see them. They should be. If you want to verify the data, you should be able to click a button and verify it. In order for the discussion to be, not to just be criticism, to have kind of proper articulation, what I'm saying is that when you form a government and the government is running well, whether your policy agrees with mine or not, I will see that you are actually on ground doing something I don't agree with, but you are doing something. So the failure of this government now is that not only do I disagree with some of the policies they are mouthing, even those policies, they don't have the executive capacity to run those policies. For example, you may disagree on counterpart funding for primary education. Let's say you disagree. Even those who agree with it are not able to get the program going. That's one of the things we read this morning. There is no ability presently in government to actually let government policies touch the ground, whether you agree with these policies or not, because a time will never come where all presidential candidates, all political parties
Why do you think that's the case?
Because conceptually, they don't know what governance is. They assume that governance is occupying government building. That if we take over government building and we're inside the villa and people come and take pictures with us, we are now in government. That is where the problem lies. Government is done on the street.
You say that they're mouthing policies, but I'm sure that a lot of Nigerians will disagree with you, because the removal of fuel subsidy and also the removal of forex subsidy, everybody is feeling the pinch in their pockets, and I think that's why there's plenty of angst in the land. I want to take you up on this issue of forming government. What precisely do you mean? Because we do know that there is a cabinet.
Yes.
And one would assume that when you have formed a cabinet, you have government, especially when you now have two coordinating ministers, one coordinating for health and social welfare of Nigeria and the other coordinating for the economy. So when you have these two people who are supposed to be overseeing not just their own ministries but other ministries, what precisely do you mean by forming government?
There are two things. One, taking one action is not the same as implementing a policy. I can say today, if I'm in government, block all the roads. Doesn't mean I'm constructing any road. I'm just taking an action. The fact that you say I remove subsidy doesn't make it a proper policy, because the policy, in policy analysis, the policy has its origin, the objective you want to achieve, the countermeasures, the feedback. So the entire gamut, the throughput of a thoroughly read out policy, they don't have it. So you can, and they don't have the uniformity of interpretation, any of those things. So they don't have policy. And if you go to the central bank, what is the policy? It was, okay, we just float the currency. So what happened? Where are other components of that policy? Where is the policy communication? They don't have a policy. But occasionally they take sporadic actions which have impact on the life of the people. But it doesn't amount to well thought out policy. Is it
that they don't have a policy, or that we haven't taken the pains to listen to what it is that they're saying?
We are listening to them, and what they are saying is giving a headache, because they don't have consistency in what they are saying. They don't want to be answerable to what they are saying. And who is the economic spokesperson for the government? You are a well-seasoned journalist. Tell me who, I forgot about the three musketeers they just announced now. Those ones, they are all fighting over territory, so give them about 6 months to become friends. But I'm dealing with who speaks for the government.
Other than the Minister of Finance?
No, because remember that the Vice President is supposed to be the one constitutionally coordinating the economy. Then the Minister of Finance is given the coordinating. I don't know who is coordinating, because in that their theme, he has himself, he has the Minister of Economic Planning, maybe, I don't know who else he has, maybe nothing, because you don't see them what they are coordinating. The gentleman, very good, brilliant doctor, who is in the Ministry of Health, who is coordinating social welfare, he cannot even run hospitals. Don't talk of social welfare in terms of, he should have been in charge of things that have to do with the one that they had a scandal.
Why you say he can't run hospitals? So isn't that what? He's not qualified or what?
No, because he's qualified to treat diseases as a doctor. But when you are a Minister of Health, one of the most efficient ministers of health in the history of Nigeria was Malam Aminu Kano. And he's not a doctor. But because he knows what to do with reducing maternal, look at the records on Gawan. Look at maternal rate, death, mortality rate and all of that, maternal death rate, infant mortality rate, when Aminu Kano became minister and when Aminu Kano left. What I'm saying is that a brilliant lawyer may not be a good attorney general. A brilliant doctor will not be a good Minister of Finance, and you can health, and you can say, and so. And a good banker who can help you keep your personal money may not be able to run an economy. It is and I don't blame any of them, because none of them fell into that place from the sky. The president must have looked around the country and said, oh, I shortlist 25 people. The best of them for me is this particular person. So if I see that there are incompetent people, disarticulated people in government, I just go back to the person who appointed them. That what was the conversation that led to you appointing them? What was on your mind when you were appointing them? When you appoint a national security advisor, out of maybe 100 experts that you know, why are you appointing this particular person? And why are you saying things which, for example, to show inefficiency, I know Lakurawa. I've known about them for the past 5 years.
The group that they say started.
They said they just discovered Lakurawa. I've known about them for the past 5 years. So if you are being government in Plateau State, you will have seen the activity that they used to go to the mining site in Plateau State, in Nasarawa State here. They will occupy the place. If you're a miner, I'm a miner. I have mining licenses, so I do mining. When you have problem with your mine, you have the two decisions to take. Do you go to the police or you go to vigilante? And Lakurawa, they will come from Mali, Chad, other places. They have difficulty speaking outside of the languages, but they're effective to hold your mine against people coming to steal your mine product. They've been around. So how can they just invent that now? So you are not a good commander-in-chief if you are telling me this kind of moonlight stories.
Are you then suggesting
that is what we are seeing?
So you're suggesting that Obasanjo's comments about Nigeria's situation presently is right?
Obasanjo's comments are right in some parts. Because I personally, with due respect to President Obasanjo, have two problems with President Obasanjo's intervention. Is that, one, anything you have done before, don't criticize somebody over it, because they won't listen to you. They will say, you did the same thing. Secondly, if you change your mind about, because we learn every day, if you change your mind about some things you did in the past, you can tell younger ones, I made a mistake in my time of not reforming INEC. I made a mistake in selling all these state institutions that I sold, NEPA, Nigeria Airways, all those things that you sold away, you should have sold away like that, because without that you can't generate employment, without that you cannot run the economy. I shall reform them. For example, why would you sell Nigeria Airways? Because they don't have aircraft. Is the aircraft the real money? The real money of Nigeria Airways, Whiskey Tango, is the BASA. They have BASA agreements worth billions of dollars. Even if they had no single aircraft, the fact that they had the right to fly to Brazil, fly to America, fly to different parts of the world, that's money on its own. So you would now raise capital.
Okay.
Yeah, you will now raise, because this is money. If all over the world, airlines are looking for places where you have the right to fly to places. So you just don't sell your airline just like that. But Obasanjo is not in government now. So he can come, keep the hypocrisy aside. A hypocrite can still be right. A person who doesn't take a shower regularly can still say to you, you haven't taken a shower today. He's correct. You cannot say that you have not taken a shower for 10 years. But he's right that you, this morning, haven't taken a shower. And you can take a lesson and go and deal with that.
What part did he say that is correct?
What I'm saying is that the state capture is correct. The fact, he gave a beautiful lecture at Yale University, the Achebe lecture. Perfect lecture. The only difference, you can say, you should have been saying, I, together with them, we did state capture. Maybe different, but the fact is that the state capture was done truly. And if one of the participants is confessing, I don't think we should just interfere. We should just let them do that discussion. But the lesson to learn from it is that if President Obasanjo can be talking like this, it means that he is now looking from outside. That thing I used to do, which I didn't know the effect, these people are now carrying on. And now we must all stop it. And I think if a person used to be a smoker is criticizing you that you are smoking now, you can say, well, but when you were young, you were smoking too. But it doesn't mean that smoking is good. So the bottom line of it is that the direction we have been taking since 1999 is not the right direction. And that's why we are seeing bad results. The difference is that Obasanjo had efficiencies. Obasanjo knows how to govern, even when he has a bad policy. He has the presence of mind to govern. Compared to those who are there and they don't have the presence of mind, Obasanjo has the time to consult. He has the ability to explain. And Obasanjo was not too much afraid of bringing talent into his government. So it doesn't mean that you will agree with him on all the policies. After all, if he was successful, many of the problems the subsequent government met on ground, they would not have made them on ground. But does not disqualify him from pointing out what is wrong. More so, he has been in that office a number of times. So even if you are doing what he has done before, that's not an excuse.
What about the response of this government to him?
No, I don't want to comment on them because first, who are the people responding? People responding are not people who are responsible in government. So you cannot take it too seriously. There is no person who is properly in government who is responding. There are people in the corridor who are just writing whatever they like.
So who is proper?
The president, when Obasanjo speaks on a matter of national importance, the person who should speak is the incumbent president himself, because Obasanjo is not a small fry. And when he's speaking, he's raising issues in the country, the president himself needs to respond to that. And when presidents are responding to each other, the language is better, the clarity is there. Short of that, the vice president, if it impacts the economy, the vice president should speak. And if the two of them are distracted by other things, the Minister of Information for the government should look at what they say. And I don't see anything wrong in taking clarification from Obasanjo and all of that. These things that we are discussing are the normal routines in government, because The opinions must fly. They must disagree or agree. But the bottom line is that while all of this politics is going on, governance must be on the ground. And in every facet, this government is not on ground. And people need to let them know that whatever you are doing in the State House, President goes from the State House straight to the airport and flies out and flies back to the State House. All of this is not governance. And that you need to go. You can see what FCT minister is doing. You can see it. He doesn't need to talk to you. You can see that he's doing something on the street, physical. Though he's doing only in the center of the town, maybe next year or somewhere he will go further into the outskirts. But you can see government in action. You can see the gentleman in charge of interior. You could see that he's responding to policy by himself. He's not sending some spokesperson. And he's taking measures to give the homeland services to the people. So, you can see that.
What I want to know, I mean, you have raised a very vital issue, which is the fact that President Obasanjo used to also engage the people by himself.
Yes.
I mean, I think he was the one who instituted this periodic media chat, which we used to see, and you know that tradition was maintained up until President Jonathan. It's since died with President Buhari, and it does appear that this particular administration wants to maintain same. How vital is that in getting the people, you know, to understand what it is? Because some people will say, well, what if the president doesn't know how to speak as such? What if his views are better expressed by others around him?
No, that's wrong. First, you are governing on behalf of the people. You are living in people's house. You are eating people's food. That dress the president is wearing is people's money. Used to buy it, the vehicle, everything. So basic respect and accountability requires that you must report back to your employers. You must report back to your master. The president used to work for Mobile before. And will he say that if the shareholders of Mobile ask him to come and explain something, he will not come? Of course he will come. So he used to work for Deloitte before. If there was a management meeting in Deloitte and they asked him to come and explain the partners, will he not come? So would you have more respect for Mobile than you have for the Nigerian people? So you have that duty. And if you don't have a talent to talk, if you are even autistic, you come and use sign language. Do something to explain to the people that you are serious about explaining to them what the issues are. And you also assure people that we're not on autopilot. You know, when you fly there on a long haul and you see the two captains coming out, walking around, we tend to ask them, is there somebody in the cockpit? They say, yes, somebody's inside there. So, because the country is all running on autopilot in turbulence, and you want to be sure that the president is even aware. There are people in government, when you talk to them, they will say, when I was removed from office, I'm not sure the president was aware. There was a young gentleman who was removed, and he was telling people, if I had been able to see the president, I would not have been removed. So even inside the government, they have their own problem of ability to know whether the circular I received is from the government or not. You can be made a minister and you don't see the president for a long time. And the people whose lives you are impacting, either by your action or inaction, want to know that what is happening to us, you know about it, that you have some intention about what is in the long run, and that these things that Adebayo of SDP is saying on television, I hope that's not all that there is. That
but some people, they'll also argue. I imagine that they will argue that. But he says that during the, what they call these addresses. For instance, the October 1 address was the last one we heard, and the president was very direct. It was the first thing he said, that Nigerians, I know what it is you're going through. Because apparently, you know, the complaints are reaching his ears, and that was what he was saying. So you don't think that statements like that at such periodic instances are helpful?
The president is not a masquerade that should come out during festivals, like October 1, May 29. No, that is a public servant who should give periodic briefing. And when the briefing given by lower level executives don't work or don't answer, the issue also come to back it up. And you know, in those days, it used to be just car side discussion. The president wants to enter the car and the journalist poses a question, the president answers it there. Spend like 5 minutes, that makes news. I spent 20 minutes in your studio, I will not make as much news as if the president speaks to you for 2 minutes. So these things, because you are responsible, you are the one in charge of the government, you are the one who major changes are made in the government without explanation. You even fire a number of ministers. You will not explain to the people why you did so. You are even bringing some new ones who are all over the place now for the past few weeks, don't know where they are doing, what they are doing. You have to explain. You are hosting a foreign head of state, and you are giving him our GCON. We need to know why. So these are all the things you do, which you have to explain. You are going to Brazil for G20. You didn't tell us what you're going to achieve there. When you came back from the previous one, no briefing, detail. When the president was there, he met with this person. You came from Saudi Arabia, you never briefed us. And the man who is going to talk didn't go with you. And if he went with you, he never went past the corridor. So you need to give this explanation. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs is a foreigner in the government. So those are the things you cannot explain.
Foreigner?
Yes, because if you're a Minister of Foreign Affairs and foreign affairs are foreign to you. So that is wrong. And it's not only for him, for so many others.
It's interesting that when you decide to give examples of those who are actually carrying out some mandates, you give examples from the president's cabinet. You spoke of the minister of the FCT, you spoke of the minister of Interior.
Yes.
These people were appointed by the president.
Yeah, so if you have a student who got 2 out of 57, I've been a teacher before, I would start praying for that kid to say, do what you did to get these 2 right. Go and get it right in the other areas. To let you know that to criticize a government is not an achievement. To get a communication across for the government to change some of the policy they can change, because there are things I don't talk about that are beyond the powers of the government to do or their money to do. But changes that they can make that will show commitment and seriousness. I talk to them. These are changes you can make.
So moving forward, and as you wind down, this government has said, look, give some of these policies time, they will work. Because as things are, I mean, you said that as well, it's challenging for several businesses and people as well. Do you think that these policies need time to work, or they should change a lot of them because they will not work?
2 things. When you talk of time in government, your time is limited. It's only in religion we have eternal life. There's no eternal life in government. So you have 4 years. So when you talk of terms, a medium-term expenditure framework is 2 years. So you can only have 2 MTEFs. So if your first MTEF is a failure, you have only 1 more. So 2 combined, your tenure is gone. Even if you find a way magically to have 4 years, 8 years is a short period. If you look at the scaling of projects, there are some projects that are going to be short-term, medium-term, long-term. Those long-term will transcend administrations. But the short-term ones, you're not getting them right. So there are things that need time in government, but there are things that don't need time that you can do immediately. So if your ministers are not performing, you don't need time to know that they're not performing, because they're not performing right away. If the reason why they're not performing is that you're not leading them well, and they can't talk, that you're not leading them well. So you are announcing policies that they don't know about. You are not interacting enough. If you're in government, to see the president as if you have seen the Lord. So you cannot run a government like that. In Obasanjo's time, despite all the 1 million votes Obasanjo has, anybody could see him. Anybody in government automatically will see him. Anybody in the periphery of government will see him. Anybody in civil society will see him. If you don't come and see him, he will come out and see you. So that everybody will not have other skill, but if one person can't do it, you have 5 core people in government whose job is to see it. And then for example, why would do you need time to know that it doesn't make any sense to have a Niger Delta ministry that is focused on Niger Delta and has been a colossal failure? You will now expand that ministry to be in charge of 6 zones. What sense does it make? It's not lack of money, it's not lack of time, just pure lack of sense.
How do you mean? How did they expand it?
If you have a minister of Niger Delta, whose job is to deal with Niger Delta.
Do you mean the minister?
Yes, the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, which his job is to oversee NDDC and see to the affairs of Niger Delta. That ministry has not been able to do well. You now ask that ministry to take care of Southwest. You now expand that ministry, Southwest, Northwest, North Central, Southeast. You can't do it.
But it means they will rejig the ministry.
How can you rejig a person who cannot pass simple arithmetic to now do algebra? to do salt, to do all of this. It can't work. So if you give someone a small, simple assignment and they are not successful, you cannot expand them and ask them to do even more complex ones. So that's what I'm saying, that it's part of the unforced error. If you play tennis, it's not all the time that the opponent is the reason why you lost. If you do all your serves and they go out of the court, it's not you don't have the ball, you have the ball on the racket. So you have unforced errors. So this government has too many unforced errors. That shows that given the experience that the president has prior to coming to office, I can only attribute to two things. Either contempt for the job, in which case I've got myself the job, I don't have a master, or pure inattention, that you're not paying attention to the job. So the president needs to come and be a commander-in-chief, and you can go and cost security expert, they will tell you many of the problems in that sector. Then you talk in terms of being a chief executive, governing the economy, running projects, getting ministries to work, getting services to rich people. Pure problem. Then the head of state function, uniting the country, going around and try to at least be present, so also failure on that.
How is it that in all of what you've spoken about,
yes,
no governor has any responsibility?
No, because to analyze the governors, you need to give me time, because I have to give you state by state analysis. And then one or two governors will be getting a few things right, but this class of governors are, I don't know, they have a particular problem. Maybe, number one, I think that many of them are accidental governors. Are governors that the previous people live in. Don't look like, who's the weakest link here? Who is not going to be a problem to me? Okay, you just go there. That's what I can see if you analyze them across. They just look for the weakest member of their team and just put the person there. Then the governors now, they are not based in their state. I hope you know that they are from a union called Governors Forum. And you are mostly going to see them in Abuja here discussing like a union. Like they even discuss more than NLC and TUC. So they don't stay in their state to do anything. And thirdly, you will find them in every ceremony. Naming ceremony, condolences, they all go. Even these days, do you notice that they wear uniforms? They wear uniforms like school kids and all gather together like alumni of your school. So they don't stay in their state. Like, I'm sure executive in my state. To go out of my state is a major event. I'm not going to go out of my state. I met with a commissioner. I will save him the horror of being sacked. I met with the commissioner yesterday at the Yaradua Center, and he was telling me, since I was appointed, I have not seen the governor. And I don't know where my office is located. So don't be surprised if I just turn in my letters soon. Okay. So that is what is happening at the local level. Some governors are trying to do a few things right, but not enough.
I guess we'll take that time eventually and analyze those governors and see who is doing what, who should be doing what, who should not even be sitting there. Who are the ones that are accidental governors, as you spoke about? I guess we'll find out. But for now, thank you for coming on this morning. Prince Adewole Adebayo was the presidential candidate for SDP 2023. We don't know what will happen next time, so we'll leave that to him to decide.
And God bless Nigeria.
Yes, indeed. So for our viewers on DSTV platform, there is a live coverage coming to you now from Adamawa State. It's the second day of the ministerial press briefing of all the ministries in the state. Maybe you might see if Adamawa is doing what you like or not. But for other viewers on other platforms, Business Morning comes up now.
Well, hello and welcome to the second trading day in the fourth week of November. We have a packed show for you today, but let's get to the top stories that set to agenda now, starting with what's playing out in the oil market. We see oil prices, they edged up today, extending the previous day's rally. Brent crude futures for January delivery, that rose about 15 cents, about 0.2% to $73.45 a barrel, while the U.S. WTI crude futures for December delivery, that was up about at $69.31 a barrel, up 15 cents, about 0.2%. And the more active WTI January contract, that rose about 13 cents, or 0.2%, at $69.30. We'll discuss what's driving sentiment later on the show. To the FX market now, NAFEX window was still depreciated against the dollar. That's the Naira, about 10 Naira 32 kobo to fix at 1,676 Naira to the dollar opening the week, there was some significant demand of the greenback and NAFEM, causing the Naira to depreciate by 38 Naira 12 kobo to close at 1,690 Naira to the dollar. But analysts are expecting rates to trade at these levels for the rest of the week, barring any significant market activity. I would say the Central Bank of Nigeria has warned the public about fraudsters claiming to have contracts or funding awards linked to the bank. According to the CBN, these claims are false and aimed at defrauding unsuspecting Nigerians. The Apex Bank clarifies that it no longer funds development interventions or special projects and has not authorized any public notices about such programs. The bank is urging Nigerians to stay vigilant and report suspicious activities to law enforcement as it remains focused on ensuring monetary stability and a sound financial system. And some company news now. Koscharis Motors is now the official retail partner of Geely Auto International in Nigeria. The new partnership will see Koscharis Motors exclusively assembling and distributing the all-new Geely GX Pro and the new Cool Ray vehicles throughout the country. The announcement of the relaunch of Geely vehicles was made by the Group Managing Director of Koscharis Group, Mr. Josiah Samuel, during a visit of members of the House of Representatives Committee on Industry and National Automotive Design and Development Council to the Koscharis Assembly Plant in Lagos. Take a listen.
Koscharis Motors Assembly Plant in the Awuyaya Lekki area of Lagos State. On this day, it's playing host to members of the House of Representatives Committee on Industry and the team from the National Automotive Design and Development Council, who are on oversight duties.
This factory,
the Group Managing Director of Koscharis Group, Mr. Josiah Samuel, conducts the guests round the state-of-the-art assembly plant, where globally respected automobile brands have been produced by Koscharis Motors, and now on the line being assembled is the Geely brand added to the company's portfolio. While the management of Koscharis Motors believes that a lot more needs to be done in terms of implementation of laws to protect indigenous organizations like Koscharis Motors, the chairman of the House Committee on Industry says all hands must be on deck to promote the Nigerian automotive industry.
with a production line of different types of vehicles, definitely they are not Santa Claus. They have to sell. They can't rely on government alone purchasing. That's not their market. Their market is 200 million Nigerians. But because the consumer prefers right now to go and buy a Tokumbo car, we must convince the consumer that the Tokumbo car is more expensive at the end of the day. That the Tokumbo car is more expensive than a brand new car.
We've had the opportunity to interface on issues around local assembly, local manufacturing of automobile, and I think it's been quite a very productive outing.
With a tour of the Koscharis assembly plant over, it's time for some of the guests to test drive the new Geely vehicles, which Koscharis describes as capable, refined, and reliable vehicle options that bridge the gap between luxury and budget.
The Geely is a great brand. Design, it's quite sporty. You're looking for an exciting adventure, you will want to test drive the Geely. You can find Geely to buy in all our showrooms today, whether in Lagos, Abuja, whether it's in Kano, Port Harcourt. The other very exciting thing about the Geely brand is that every Geely model comes with a 6-year warranty program.
Koscharis Motors reiterates that the new Geely Cool Ray and GX3 Pro, in addition to other new models, have what it takes to meet customers' expectations, as the company looks forward to welcoming both existing and new customers. Yomi Otaigwe, Channels Television News.
All right, now to our first conversation. We see experts say Nigeria is poised to play a significant role in the global transition to a low-carbon economy. The country's clean tech sector, although still in its infancy, holds a tremendous potential for driving sustainable development, mitigating climate change, and creating economic opportunities. But let's explore the current state of clean tech in Nigeria and the challenges, opportunities facing the sector, and innovations and solutions that can help unlock its full potential. Joining us for this conversation, we have Mr. James Fabola Jr., the Chief Financial Officer at Energy. Join me right here in the studio. It's great to have you.
Same here. I guess a good place to start is Happy International Men's Day.
Happy International Men's Day. Wow, what a time to be a man.
Absolutely.
With a cost of living crisis, I guess this is where you show that man in you and that doggedness at this time. But I celebrate you for coming on the show today. But, you know, definitely looking at your sector, I remember a time when, you know, everyone could somehow, you could afford fuel. You know, it was about 100 and something naira per liter. And those times you'd hear, you know, people could run generators all night. Mm-hmm. And that has changed. Now, looking at the price of fuel, people are not really running generators overnight like before. There's more quiet. You know, some say it could be a blessing in disguise, you know, according to an article on Business Day. But has that created more demand for cleaner energy? You know, because I've seen the prices of installation, you know, for solar panels. For maybe a 2-bedroom, I've seen that range from maybe 2 to 3 million naira to install. That's if you're using everything when it comes to heating, you know, and cooling. Some would say that's really expensive. So talk to me about demand so far for clean energy.
No, absolutely. For us, we saw the landscape change fundamentally over the last 18 months, right? With the removal of fuel subsidy, increase in Band A tariffs, and then diesel prices, which have been at sustained high levels, right? All of that strengthened the value proposition for solar. And for us now, we're at the point now where we can say for a fact that solar is cheaper than all these other traditional energy sources. But the big challenge, which has been one of the inhibitors to solar adoption, has been the upfront cost. So when you say solar is expensive, what you're saying is the entry point is still relatively high. Because over an extended period, say 5 to 10 years, the data shows that solar is cheaper. So at Energy Solar, what we're doing is targeted at reducing that upfront cost, which we're looking at incentives. We're partnering with our stakeholders. We're allowing people install solar in their houses and look at getting cost savings from day one. Without that, it will just continue to be a myth, and then solar will continue to be that concept that is not tangible to the common Nigerian.
Because it's quite interesting. I remember a time when I think I was pitched at some time, you know, when the naira was still quite valuable, you know, depending on where you're looking at it from. It was about 400,000 naira, you know, to get a full installation, you know, solar. But
and you said no at the time?
Yes, sadly, I didn't take that. But looking at the prices now, it seems currency devaluation, that's weighing on that market for sure.
Yeah, it is. But the caveat is, globally, we're seeing the prices of components fall. So, for example, over the last 18 months, battery prices have halved. Prices of solar panels have even become significantly cheaper, also inverters. Unfortunately, the naira is depreciating faster than the trend at which these prices are falling, right? But that being said, the net effect is still solar is cheaper, because if you remember, given the removal of fuel subsidy, petrol prices are now supposed to dance alongside the exchange rate, which is we're supposed to be taking on the full effect. Diesel prices continue to be what they are, and even the Band A tariffs, which are MITO, are supposed to be pegged to the FX. So solar is still the sector where obviously most of the components are imported, but the net effect is we're not passing on the full effect to the consumer, because we are leveraging some of the cost savings we're seeing globally, but also businesses like Energy are being a lot more innovative in their execution, ensuring that we're able to finance the solar solution so the common man can have access to solar and enjoy the benefits of that from day one.
But looking at the clean tech space, you know, at this time, how would you describe investment, you know, in the space? And how is a Trump presidency, you know, shaping the whole clean energy narrative?
It's interesting you start with Trump, right? Because on one hand, you have one of the big proponents of his candidature as president being Elon Musk, being a big proponent of the EE vehicles like Tesla. So I think time will tell how that shapes out. When you bring it home to Nigeria, ultimately what I tell people is investments would follow where potential returns are. Up until recently, the commercial case for clean tech wasn't as strong. But given what has changed over the last 18 months, you will see a lot of money come into funding clean tech opportunities in Nigeria. And we're already seeing a lot of that. Recently, a company called Beacon Power Services closed their Series A round. And you'll see a lot more of that happen, right? We are currently in a fundraising. I cannot divulge the details, but before end of year, knock on wood, we'll be looking to announce our raise as well. What that means is we're signaling to the market and our stakeholders that we are funded. Because one of the challenges with the space hitherto has been there's a low trust factor, but people are also not sure if operators can meet customers at the point of their need and provide quality solutions that would last over an extended period of time. Businesses like our energy, being backed by some of our stakeholders, like Bill Gates is an investor, the Norwegian government, Shell seeding all on, which is an investor, and then with partners like the Bank of Industry, we're positioned to drive the solar adoption and ensure that over the next 12 to 24 months, we will see a lot more dent in the market and we'll be driving solar penetration. Right,
and just recently we had the proposal for the 2025 budget, and it's a whopping 47 trillion naira that we're looking at for spending, in 2025. What kind of conversations are being had, in your industry to see if you get a share of that budgeting that's for clean tech?
So speaking for energy and for some of the stakeholders I've engaged, we don't see it as trying to get a share. We think we underpin everything that is going to happen from an economic developmental standpoint, right? So if you take it, there are a lot of businesses today which unfortunately may not survive given their current energy costs. So if the energy transition doesn't happen, we'll see a lot more businesses die. So if you're a government today, and we must give credit to the current dispensation, they've been clear about their direction on renewable energy, clean energy with the Electricity Act and some of the other policies. But the reality is it's not out of the goodness of their hearts. They know it's imperative, right? If businesses will thrive, if jobs will be preserved, then businesses must make that transition because they have to be powered by the cheapest energy source, which is solar. So what the government can do is they've already started, which is the right policies in place, but they also have to put their money where their mouths are. So the incentives, the initiatives to engender a sector that would raise capital and draw in the right type of operators, that needs to happen. And then we become the bedrock upon which all the building blocks which they're talking about, whether it's healthcare, education, hospitality, consumer businesses, all of these need to be powered. And today, at the risk of sounding selfish, solar is the only way to sustainable pathway for some of these businesses. Right,
and talking about cheap, I know most consumers now, I'm sure they would be longing for that word, cheap, because everything is expensive right now. So, looking into, 2025 and beyond, what would you say could be that tailwind to keep renewable energy cheap for a country like Nigeria?
The word cheap can be a two-edged sword. We like to say value for money, right? In terms of what would keep it affordable and ensure customers get value for money is, I think some policies, again, I've given the government credit in terms of policies they've put in place. At the risk of sounding like an Oliver Twist, we want more.
Right.
It's still a bit expensive bringing in components. Some of the tariffs, the import duties, those could fall off somewhat, and then the enforcement of that. Financing. Today, commercial banks are lending, no knock on them, at north of 30%, some of it driven by inflation. That won't really crack that solar adoption drive we want to see. So financing has to be affordable. Again, kudos to partners like Bank of Industry doing an amazing job. InfraCredit is also doing a great job in trying to drive cost of finance. We need to see a lot more of that because ultimately we need to pass that on to the consumer so they can afford to get solar. The other conversations around localizing the supply chain, I think that is still in its infancy. My caveat is always we need to invest in manufacturing that leverages our natural competitive advantage, and not just because it's fancy. So time will tell. There are a few solar manufacturing endeavors locally, a few conversations around battery manufacturing as well, but I think that would come later. But in terms of immediate next steps, policies that support businesses like our energy, reducing the cost of importation, and then financing is a major biggie. That if that falls off, that would be great for everyone.
Well, fantastic. And I'm looking forward to a time where businesses pass on goodies to the consumers and not higher prices all the time. But thank you so much. James Fabula Jr. is the Chief Financial Officer at Energy. It was great having your perspective today.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we've got to check on what's playing out in the commodities markets. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's check out what's playing out in the commodities market. And join us for this, we have Dumebi Oluwole, is a senior economist, joining us right here. Dumebi, it's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Lady. It's great to be here.
Great to have you as usual. And a lot has happened since the last time we spoke.
Yeah.
We have 47 trillion. That's a key word at this point, and that's the proposed budget for 2025. We've had a lot of conversations about the benchmarks.
Yes.
And I'm getting really nervous, when it comes to oil prices.
Yes.
$75, that's the benchmark there for 2025.
Yes.
But I'm seeing weakness in that market.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
I mean, what I see is volatility.
Right.
And no country can plan with volatility. Right, so whether it's weakness or volatility, there's still a question mark there on how stable, government revenue will be benchmarking oil prices at around where they've benchmarked it at. And right now, there's a lot of uncertainty as to what will drive oil prices in 2025. But what we do know now is that there is some level of escalation with the Russia-Ukraine war. And that might prop up prices, but temporarily, right? Because we've seen that trend over the last couple of years, and we do know that there's a high and then there's a low. Then you also consider the cartel, that's OPEC now, being quite conservative, right, with oil supply, because at the same time they're also trying to keep prices at a particular benchmark as well, so that they're able to break even, and member countries are able to generate some substantial revenue. Regardless of that, then you also consider some level of like the Israel-Hamas war as well. But again, it goes up, it comes down. So market sentiment towards oil prices right now extremely volatile. And the key thing here is that rather than benchmarking Nigeria's government revenue towards, like oil prices being volatile, the conversation should have always been, and right now should even be a lot more around how we can diversify our revenue base, right? So it's a still conversation, but the truth is that we've gotten to the point where we can no longer sideline that conversation. Oil prices, right, the global market, even global growth is projected to still remain tepid, right? So what that means is that in a global environment where demand is pretty slow from China right now, interest rates are still likely to remain high. They're going to fall, but at a very slow pace. But what this means is that the US dollar could likely remain strong, and that affects, exchange currency pressures, not only for Nigeria, but across Africa. So what this means is that commodity dependency, right, has now become, there's a huge question mark there, and countries need to start adding some value and then diversifying their revenue base. And Nigeria right now sits at the core of that conversation.
Right, it's quite interesting you say that, because we're always talking about oil prices,
Yes.
benchmarking oil prices, and nobody's really talking about diversification. Like, let's
Yes.
look at other resources
Yes.
that we can actually profit from.
Yes.
But looking at that market now, we have geopolitics that
Yes.
comes up, supply disruption, it props up the price. They now have China demand realities,
Slowly, yes.
bringing us back down.
Yes.
So is this what's still going to be playing on in 2025?
I mean, from all indications, because as economists, we predict the future based on what is happening now, and from all indications, that's going to be the case, at least up until the first quarter of 2025, or in the first half of 2025. China's economy, there's some level of stimulus going in, but we haven't seen that significantly ramp up GDP growth. And if demand doesn't significantly bump from China, what that means is that the demand for a lot of global commodities is going to remain slow or remain low. And what that means for prices is that prices are going to be bearish. And if prices are bearish, the exporting countries would not be able to make as much money. And so you find them trying to leverage more on volume than the actual price itself. I remember in the global commodities market, prices are locked in the future. So they trade in forward contracts. And what that means is that if you lock in a price for today that is lower than the price, that maybe in the next few weeks or next few months, you're going to make a lot less money. And what if the prices that you lock in today are also, even if they are higher, the chances are that if prices are going to fall and there's a market expectations that prices are going to fall, what it means that prices are going to fall. So there's that expectation loop as well. So that you find that there's a lot of merry-go-round going on in the global commodities space. I mean, over the last couple of months, I think for the past 2 months, we've seen grain prices increase, still up on the back of, the Russia-Ukraine war. And what that means for a country like Nigeria is that we import a lot of these commodities, right? Like wheat, cereals, sugar. And if the prices are higher, our import, bill on those commodities are increasing. And when you look at it, when you try to net it off with Nigeria's balance of trade, you see that we're not producing enough to sell enough for key commodities like oil, and the prices of that commodity is lower, right? So what it means, we're not generating enough FX. Then you now put it side by side with the commodities that we're importing, and their prices are rising. So what it means is that the FX that we're generating, we're also spending a lot more to bring in more commodities into the country. So when you net it off, you realize that we're spending a lot more than we're bringing in, than we're generating, right? And that raises a huge question on Nigeria's balance of trade, our FX stability, FX reserves, and a lot of other questions on the key things that now affect the domestic commodities market, because at the end of the day, nobody really cares about what is going on at the helm of affairs until it begins to affect their pockets. And right now we're beginning to see that sharp transmission effect from what happens on policy scale and even the global scale in terms of what is happening with the people. And key things, food prices and the exchange rates.
Right, and looking at a Trump presidency, Trump is all about drill, baby, drill at this point. So, going into 2025, we're seeing expectations of more output.
Yes,
coming out from the US.
Yes.
So, I guess it's safe to say the prices will still be pressured.
Yes, I mean, you're not wrong there, and to be very honest, I will say that we most likely might see some level of revisions, right, with Nigeria's budget. They might not change the budget assumptions, but we might see some level of revisions going into 2025. Because the reality on ground is that we do know the kind of presidency that the Trump administration is gonna have, right? We know Trump's stance on crude oil production. We know Trump's stance on geopolitics. And again, it's quite dicey to say this is exactly what is going to happen. But from all inclinations, we do know that oil production is going to increase, and that's going to affect price. But at the same time, we do know that OPEC is going to be conservative, right? So what that means is that supply from OPEC might not be as high. So it might somewhat net off. We saw that happen in 2020, right, when we saw an increase in oil production from the US, and OPEC was also cutting its supply. So there was some level of, a matchup basically happening there in terms of supply. Then there's another factor to consider, Chinese demand. We don't expect China's demand to be low all through 2025. So there are expectations that the stimulus packages might begin to, bump up, GDP growth. So maybe at the second half of 2025, we might see China's demand actually begin to pick up, and that might support prices, right? But who knows? If prices are falling again, we might see like a supply cut or something. Then again, I think the important thing here, basically, is also to look at the geopolitical tensions as well. So with the Trump administration, we've seen a lot of analysis coming up to say that the Kremlin and also Ukraine, even Israel and Hamas as well, we might see some level of decline, right, in escalations for the war with a Trump presidency. If that happens, we expect that there'll be some calm in oil prices, right? primarily we might not see strong stability, but if that happens, if that is the case, scenario is that oil prices will likely remain around $70, $75 per barrel. And if that is the case, Nigeria, maybe there's some level of safe bet, but better safe than sorry, right? The important thing is that we are realistic with our assumptions, and we do not hedge the entire country's revenue on one commodity. So that takes me back to the conversation I had about diversifying our revenue base. It has become more imperative right now that we do that, not because we cannot enjoy oil or we're not doing enough to produce more oil, because truth be told, the entire conversation around fossil fuels is not going to die anytime soon. We're transitioning to renewable energy, but that transition is going to take some time. Let's be very honest. And Nigeria's revenue is still pretty much hinged on crude oil. So for that conversation, it means that we can still try to make a lot more if we produce a lot more. But again, diversifying our revenue base has to be
very important. I need to see more commodities up there, and maybe one of them, knock off oil. At some point.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but I mean,
at some point in the future. Thank you so much, Adebayo Oluwole. It was great to have your perspective. You're a senior economist joining us right here for the commodities market.
Thank you.
All right, so that's it for me on Business Morning. Markets are open now. We'll give you an update at 1 p.m. on Business Incorporated to see how your money is performing. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. I hand things over to the Sunrise Daily team.
All right, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, indeed. Now, going back to former President Obasanjo's narratives and what's playing out in the policy, as you've seen there, Mr. Laolu Akande joins us this morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Yeah, so where do we start? The former president has done it again.
I like that he has done it again.
So he's even though as far away as we thought, was he thinking, wait a minute, maybe if this one is too far, it might not make that same kind of impact. But he's a strategist, having been in the military, so they know. But all of those comments, eventually, the government responded to it. So start from the comment, the lecture he delivered himself. Give us your impression about that.
Okay, right. So, as we know, I mean, President Obasanjo is a statesman, is a patriot. I don't think anybody can deny the fact that he loves the country, he has fought a war. So we have to give him his due credits for that. But to the extent that President Obasanjo actually has been president for 3 times, he basically had 3 terms, and there's nobody that has that experience. 11 years altogether, from 76 to 79, and then 1999 to 2003, and then 2003 to 2007, was sworn in 3 times. Now, he must take responsibility for the state of the nation where the country is today. I mean, if he were to be honest, and this is the point, if former President Obasanjo were to be honest, he should be telling us that, look, I share in the responsibility of where Nigeria is in today. That way, people take him serious, because a lot of the things that we are sorting out today, Obasanjo is part of the problem. And it's difficult for any honest analysis to ignore that. Is it a question of corruption? It was under Obasanjo that they brought cash to the National Assembly. We can't forget how much, he corralled state governors and businessmen to fund his presidential campaign, some of them with state funds. So Obasanjo cannot talk about corruption. So he should take responsibility. The first thing that President Obasanjo needs to do, if he's honest, if he doesn't want to remain inelegant, because his lecture is clearly inelegant, is to own up, to say that, look, I take responsibility for some of the problems that we are dealing with now. And I think, having done that, let's see what else we can do. So if you are not willing to do that, then please keep silent.
So that on one hand. On the other hand, are we then going to say Or are we going to base all of what has happened after that? For instance, we've had several elections in this country, and people have come in 2 terms, for the most part, almost all the presidents. Are we then going to say, well, all of those who came in there were not good enough? What the President Obasanjo did at that time supersedes what all of them have done.
Well, so I think there is a major systemic problem, and this is some of the things that I have been reflecting over. So it is not just the political leadership. There is fundamental problem with the political leadership. We don't have leaders who really are committed to the public good, who are really, really committed to the public good. But part of the problem for that is because they also come out of a system that is losing its moral values right from the person at the end of the lowest rung of the ladder. We are losing our moral values, and it's coming all the way to the top. So the people who emerge to take leadership positions come out among us. So we need to fix the system. And that's why I am saying that, look, what has to happen in Nigeria now is for a concerted effort of politicians and non-politicians. Non-politicians must be involved. Non-politicians must take active role in sorting it out. Don't let us allow politicians to turn it only into an issue of getting elected. Because they will weaponize all these issues so that they can win the next election. And I think that is what President Obasanjo is trying to do.
So let me ask you. Now, of course, not that one is holding brief for him. But for those who say, look, the way the government responds to this is tantamount to a walk ban quarreling with its tools. Because you were elected, you've campaigned vigorously, and the same thing with previous presidents, that you will fix this.
Yeah.
So what is it that the former president has said that is not happening now? Because after all, many reminded us last year, the current president said Nigeria has leadership problems, and it's on tape.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's the point that I thought for Obasanjo to be able to open the space in a way that brings real progress for our country, he has to own up. Part of the problem is that Obasanjo, it would seem, has a personal vendetta against Tinubu, and everybody knows it. And I can give you examples. Okay, Obasanjo was the one that refused to pay the local government allocation for Lagos State when Tinubu was president, even after the Supreme Court said it's illegal, you can't hold it. Obasanjo left office not making the payment. Tinubu was the only one.
Not making the payment to the ones, the LCDAs, not the local government.
They were not, they withheld their local government allocations.
Because I think they said that process was not complete, so you can't continue with the LCDAs.
The Supreme Court said the money should be released to Lagos State government. Obasanjo did not release the money. Obasanjo violated the ruling of the Supreme Court. We haven't forgotten this thing. In 2003, when Obasanjo raided Southwest with its electoral malpractices, it was only Tinubu that was able to hold down fire to fire. So there's a personal vendetta between Tinubu and Obasanjo. And Obasanjo this is lecture. This calling him a Miloko when he refused to attend the Council of State meetings. A statesman like him ought to go to that Council of State meeting and make the point in the Council of State meeting. But we don't know why he did not come.
Okay, so two things. Didn't the president say so? That is his turn.
Yes.
So what has Obasanjo said that is different?
I'm just saying that he's making a jest of the guy.
Okay, so if anyone of us said
that's what I'm saying.
Then they'll say, oh, they can listen to us. But
it's not that it's not true. It is true that the President Tinubu said I'm local. No, but I'm saying that I'm trying to establish that the issue between Obasanjo and President Tinubu go way deeper, and people must understand. We must remind ourselves so that Obasanjo is not doing us any good. Obasanjo is fighting his own personal vendetta against President Tinubu. This is what is happening. Nigerians should not be fooled. The only thing that Obasanjo can tell us is that, okay, I own up. If he owns up, then we start to take him really seriously.
If he owns up, how does that change the fact of what he has said?
Well, I mean, so at least now we know that he's honest.
But the things he said, economy is, we all see that.
Very true, and we don't need him to show us that. We all know that. We know that already.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm really, first and foremost, I must confess that I'm a little taken aback by your own analysis this morning. Because
it's important to bring out the juice.
I have always known, I mean, you have spared this particular government no punches, and if you were to hear from Obasanjo, which is not particularly out of character for him, we know, I mean, you say he has a personal vendetta against President Tinubu, but we also know that there has been no government that Obasanjo has spared, maybe with the exception of President Yar'Adua. And who knows, maybe if Yar'Adua had lived his full tenure in office, who knows what would have happened, you know, with President Obasanjo. There's been no president that President Obasanjo hasn't taken on.
That doesn't cure him of the vendetta.
Oh, well, it doesn't cure him, but we also know that he has precedence. We also know that, you know, he's been that way since he left office. Even before he became president, he's been like that. I think it was Musikiliu Mujib that chronicled Obasanjo's letters right from even when he was a soldier. So some people will say it's not particularly out of character. I mean, if he has a vendetta, perhaps, but even if he did not, maybe he will still do this. You don't think so?
Well, no, I mean, my point is that if Obasanjo or anyone gets on the pulpit to pontificate, then we are going to question their moral basis. And I'm saying that Obasanjo does not have any moral basis to go against Tinubu. He doesn't. Because all the things that he said that is happening now, which is true, he perpetrated it when he was in power.
It's interesting because I'm looking at the
there is nothing that he said that he did not perpetrate when he was in government.
I'm looking at the title of the lecture. It was something around leadership failure and state capture, etc. And, you know, one of the things he said at the beginning of that lecture was that he's an appropriate person to have been invited. He said, at the risk of being immodest, he's an appropriate person to have been invited to have this, to give this lecture. First is a Nigerian president who's been there how many years, how many tenures. He gives the reason why he's the appropriate person to be invited. He also speaks in very glowing terms, of course, of Chinua Achebe, etc. So we mustn't forget the context in which he was invited, and why he was invited, and the topic, perhaps, that he was given to, you know, speak on. How do you speak on that? And I think he also talks about how, in his time, he was president with some modest records of success. And that is something that we cannot take away from President Obasanjo. Even the first analyst who spoke on this program says, you cannot take it away from Obasanjo that he was a present president when he was in power. So while we say that, you know, yes, you might have a vendetta and maybe he doesn't have all the moral credentials, there are things that you cannot take away from President Obasanjo's tenure.
And that was the first thing that I said, that, you know, you have to grant him his credentials. You know, he handed over power in 1979. You know, and of course he grew to become an African statesman. Yes, you have to, you know, we can't deny that.
An African statesman, the economy performed better during his time as president.
In terms of the GDP, but that's another story. I even think, and I've said this before, I even think that Obasanjo is one of the more, I mean, and that's very tough to say, but if you look at all the presidents since 1999, he seems to have a better grip of things. But my point here is that we should not, because this is a commonwealth, it's a public commonwealth. We are talking about public interest. And that's my own focus. Each time I come out and make an analysis, I'm looking at the public interest. Who is taking charge of that? That's my own issue. And if you look at, even if you look at that lecture, so he was invited to give a lecture that has to do with Achebe and all that, and he quoted Achebe over and over and over and over and over in the conclusion, everywhere, confirming what Achebe said. Now, that same Achebe, when he rejected Obasanjo's award, you know, I think in 2004, I will read the letter, just the first paragraph. He said, I read this letter with a very heavy heart. For some time now, I have watched events in Nigeria with alarm and dismay. I have watched particularly the chaos in my own state of Anambra, where a small clique of renegades openly boasting its connection in the high places. He went on and said, even with the presidency of Obasanjo keeping quiet. And in the conclusion, he said, Nigeria's condition today under your watch is, however, too dangerous for silence. This is the same Achebe that Obasanjo is now venerating. Look, come on. Obasanjo owes Nigerians an apology to say that, look, yes, we have problems. And these are the problems. We can't deny those problems that he articulated. But he holds us to say, I was part of this problem. And now, having realized it, let's sort it out. Why do you think Babangida is keeping quiet? Why do you think Abdulsalami is keeping quiet? Why do you think Jonathan is keeping quiet?
But you said they shouldn't keep quiet, that people should speak up.
That's what I'm saying. They are keeping quiet, in my view, because they know that they can't take that kind of role that Obasanjo is taking without, first of all, owning up. If Obasanjo wants to be the one for us to listen to, he should own up. He should own up to his irresponsibility when he was president. He should. So it's the right thing. And we should not ask for less. As a people, we should not ask for less from our leaders.
So here's the thing. Should we be looking to him to own up, or we should be looking to institutions? If we feel that he's done certain things, where are the institutions to hold him accountable? A man can refuse to own up or not own up.
I agree.
If the systems are there, then if he owns up, what changes?
I agree. And that's why I said that the problems are actually, they are systemic problems. The reason why it is useful for him to own up is that then we can together address the problems honestly and begin to sort it out. But please don't come and lecture us about corruption.
Is he lecturing us? Is it us who's lecturing, or he's lecturing the people who are currently, the people whom we should be holding to account? Because, Chimley, I would rephrase your question and say, not the institutions that we should be holding accountable. The president, the person who is there, the person who said it is my turn. Isn't that the person we should be holding to account to say, this is what President Obasanjo has said. If this is coming from no less than somebody who has worn your shoes and knows where it pinches, and he believes that so much better can be done, why aren't you doing better?
Which is what we are doing. We can do that. Okay? There's a saying in Yoruba language that says that Oroko Dunenu Yaule. That means that the mother of the thief cannot have credibility to speak. Obasanjo is not the one to lecture us on corruption, even about election. Obasanjo rigged 2003 election, rigged 2007 election. President Yar'Adua came out.
No, but he didn't say my elections was rigged.
He came out to say that it was flawed.
Yeah.
That is as far as it goes.
But see,
and we have evidences of what the reforms that came out, which were meant to address it. So Obasanjo should be talking about proper election. So he did not conduct proper election when he was there.
So Laolu, here's the thing. We seem to be fixated on him. There might be relevant reasons why. There are several persons who were in the judiciary, who presided over and gave judgments.
True.
There are several persons who are in politics who were their beneficiaries, they kept mum.
Yeah.
There are people in government today. And as a matter of fact, I've heard several people also ask, what effrontery or moral right does this government have to even reply him the way they did when Nigerians are suffering as a result of their policies?
I agree with all of that, the Chamberlain, by the way. I agree with all of that. I agree that the government of the day should address the problem. And that is what we do as journalists, to put their feet to the fire. Okay? My only issue here is that, look, I am interested in an elite consensus. I'm interested in
do we actually have elite?
I'm interested in us trying to get to the root of our problem. Let me tell you what is happening, honestly. This is my theory. They want to win the election in 2027, and they're moving all around the place. They are going to weaponize this problem and let it appear as though, it's an altruistic thing. It is not. It is not. And this is my point. This is why I am so particular about this. This is not, they're not trying to fix it. They just want to get power back. They said, look, we have to take this guy out of the villa. That is what all of this is about. And I'm saying that we have to be deeper, because if you take the guy out of power, you are bringing back the same people with the same character. We have gone through this enough.
What's
it's
stronger?
Like going round and round the wilderness.
Yeah. So what's
it's
stronger?
Time for us to make a break.
What stronger countermeasure or what stronger break can we make other than this government say, okay, or if I go to the market, what I'm buying for 2,000 today is 1,000. Is that not a stronger statement?
I agree.
Is that not the answer? So if that doesn't happen,
that is helpful. That is helpful in the short term, yes, so that there can be succor. And this is I'm also worried about this. There's too much poverty, multidimensional poverty. I believe that government of the day, the president and the governors have a lot to do to try and sort out the issues. What I'm trying to say here is that look, don't let us allow these politicians to use these problems to weaponize it and then try to change themselves in power. If we are not going to get anywhere further with it, we will still come back to this point. So why don't we have a more holistic conversation that says that, look, can we change certain things in our rules, in the Constitution, in the way parties operate, in the way the primaries and internet democracy, all the things that we find problematic, the judiciary, all the challenges. Can we find a way that all of us can agree that this is the minimum, that we shouldn't go below? That is an elite consensus. And then we start to build anew. This kind of rhetoric that Obasanjo is promoting is not in the interest of that new beginning. No, they just want to win 2027. They want to get the guy out of the place, put their own people there. These are the same people who haven't taken responsibility for where we are. This is my point.
Well, I mean, some people will say, at the end of the day, will it really matter? As long as they're doing it through the votes, as long as it is the people of Nigeria that are taking those decisions, it shouldn't matter, should it?
Do you think, Markwe, that the Nigerian people are taking decisions in the elections? In the real sense?
I should ask you.
Our elections are still significantly flawed. Our elections are still significantly flawed. We know it. And that's part of the problem that I'm talking about. There are deeper issues. Our moral values have declined. The kind of things that we accept. And we are in this country in the Second Republic. We had a far better government because we had a far better society. And that's my point. This problem is deeper than political problem.
Yes, it is deeper. And some people will say, whilst values have declined, values are even more at risk now with the current state of impoverishment of the people.
Guess what?
I mean, all we had to do was go to Ondo State for the elections. And by the way, I don't know whether that cap is from Ondo State.
No, this cap is from Ibadan.
It's from Ibadan, okay. The last elections that happened in Ondo State, the only thing, we didn't hear about violence, thankfully, but the amount of vote buying, it was pretty significant in such a way that it didn't miss the news. People even admitted it, It was so prominent.
That's the problem.
So,
we have to be speaking to those problems. Those are the things that we have to sort out.
But how do we solve that? Because if people are so poor, and right now we're looking at a situation where people basically are not sure of where the next meal will come from. And you're telling them that the day that's going to come and they'll be giving monies for free from government. Never mind what government is saying, that they've sent money to 25 million people. It's unsure if we can verify those people and how often they are sending those monies to the most vulnerable. But if people are unsure of where the next meal is going to come from, given where we currently are, can we really avoid those conversations ahead of 2027?
Well, so the responsibility of the government of the day to take care of the situation is still their responsibility, and we continue to put their feet to the fire. We should deal with the problem of hardship. We've talked a lot about some of the things that can be done. We should deal with the problem of poverty, okay? So we shouldn't wait. We're not saying that government should wait. Let us first of all sort our moral decline, which is actually the genesis. No. I'm saying that government should be held responsible for its responsibilities for welfare of the people and security. But I'm saying that now, the rest of us, we should now look beyond that. Our churches, our mosques, our religious leaders, our public intellectuals, they have to add their voice to what is happening in this country. How do we avert a situation where the destiny of this country is not going to be realized if we continue like this? I want a situation where we don't allow politicians to weaponize those problems to keep themselves in and out of power. It's a very important point that we have to pay attention to, Mabwe.
Well, I am also very, very curious as to not just the current political situation as witnessed, as what we've just witnessed in Ondo State, but I'm also curious as to, what it is that we can do to make sure that the, how do I put it now, that the political class, do not shy away. I mean, let me give you an instance. This particular, I think it was the first analyst that said that when he saw the response of the president's spokespeople, he didn't think that it was the president's spokespeople that should be responding. You have been a spokesperson.
Okay.
In that, I don't know whether you agree that you think it's the president who should respond directly or it's the spokespeople. But even at that, some people would say that whilst it is that they can attack the former president and say you are in no moral standing to tell us, to pontificate to us, shouldn't they be saying what it is they're doing to correct some of the things, some of the issues that the former president has raised in his letter?
Okay, so two things. Yes, I think that the response should also address the problems, because what he has done, what Obasanjo has done, is to call them out. Okay, so you should deal with that. Okay. But to the question of whether the president should respond or not, I would never advise, in these circumstances, I would never advise.
President?
No, because I know that there are issues. The president should just continue to do his work. Let his spokespeople handle it. I disagree with Mr. Adebayo that said, no. The president shouldn't have to respond. He shouldn't have to. Let the people whose job it is to engage in public, let them respond. And I agree. Let them also address the issues that he has raised. What are you doing about poverty? What are you doing about human capital development? What are you doing to address the problems? Let them address that.
But during your time, I thought the former president, Buhari, said, look, there's no media aid should respond to President Obasanjo.
Well,
because of that respect.
Yeah, but
so
eventually
reduce it.
But even at that time, eventually there was a response. You see, because so in the case of President Buhari was a military man. Obasanjo, so
the respect, the honor was there.
We normally even when I worked with the vice president, there was even a time I got into trouble, over this kind of stuff, because I said no, don't talk about it. So people who have respect will behave like that. But there's a job to be done. They can't call out your government and then there will be silence. They can't. You have to go.
So here's the thing
and
now.
say, what that thing that you said, this is the response to it.
Could they have done it without saying you are in no position to pontificate?
No, I think they should say that he's no position to pontificate. It's important.
It's almost expected.
But what position are they now? Because all of them seem to be at the same level, all the spokespersons. So which one is which? How did the people that know which is what?
Very important question, Chimbali. I think that the president should set his house in order. If you have 3 spokespersons, that's fine. But we must have a number 1 spokesperson. It is called order. Order is the first rule in heaven. On how to, even among thieves, there must be order. Who is the main? And that is why Boala got into the problem that he got to yesterday. Boala felt, and I think, if you look at the title that he was given, he felt that he was going to be the official spokesperson. That was what Ajuri was calling himself. And nobody corrected him. Now, if he's going to take a jury spot, then that is what he becomes. Guess what? Few hours after, the rug was removed from his feet, like somebody said. The president should set his house in order. There must be a head of his comms team. There must be.
Okay. Thank you for coming on, Laolu.
Thank you so much for having me.
I always wonder, when people say there must be order, even among team. Have you been a team before?
It's a saying.
I've been big there with them to know how they share their loot.
Order, what I do is honor amongst thieves. There are some things that even thieves consider sacred.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead. Before we go, I think Yomi says, principles or policies of current administrations are for our salvation in the hour of needs like now. If we desert them now, how can we be saved from the snares and pains of selves, cabals, bandits? It takes time. Any leader who promises to fix Nigeria in 14-year term is a scam. We didn't get here in 4 years, but I'm hoping the hard work of the current administration shall yield speedy productivity in good time. Pure-hearted, healthy-minded people like President Tinubu love work and happy in their labors. They never complained of being overworked. Let's just give him time. For help is on our way, he says.
I could have said that was Sermon on the Mount when you start to hear salvation and saved. But Yomi, thank you so much for sending in your message.
Oh my goodness. Yes, and thank you for watching as well. That is it today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain. So goodbye.
I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Have a lovely day.